Hello, everybody. Good to be with you again today and to bring you a new GYN Garage. My name's Ed Pavlik, and I'm in Lexington, Kentucky, where today we have cold weather and gloomy weather. My colleague on this day is,
Frank Lawton from a cold and gloomy London, United Kingdom.
well, we've got something to share.
Yes, not just a common language, common weather.
That's right. Well, today's question on GYN Garage is, to what extent do oncologists prescribe chemotherapy in the final days of life? And the paper is taken to the last 30 days of life. And the answer to this question is in the paper titled Estimating Oncologist Variability in Prescribing Systemic Cancer Therapies to Patients in the Last 30 Days of Life, published in the journal Cancer that is part of the American Cancer Society network. We'll again deal with our analysis both with human and artificial intelligence. Well, this paper, so that you can see it, is from the United States, from good institutions. It's populated or overpopulated with more epidemiologists or people with PhDs. And uh, that's all I want to say really about it, as a paper. The, the, the thing that has to be understood is that the way the paper uh, was set up was to say, uh, the way the paper was set up, if I can get it set up here, um, is that uh, uh, you choose a dichotomization into quartiles of prescribing oncologists, and they're prescribing for non-GYN cancers. So that is something that's different about this paper. Now, basically, then they've said, let's take those oncologists that are high prescribers for end-of-life people and those that are low. So basically, they've divided these people into the whole group into quadrants, and they call the high-end prescribers those in the top 25% and those in the low end, the bottom 25%. And then they've established, in a major sense, the probabilities or the odds ratios of uh, being in the receipt of chemotherapy in the last days of life, those odds. And the breast cancer group had the highest odds of receiving chemotherapy in the last 30 days of life. Lower odds were people who were African American or blacks, people with late stage disease or late grade or high grade disease, and older people. Um, so one can glean from this that perhaps the driving force for uh, delivering chemotherapy so late was that these were younger people and hope was being held out. And that basically the late stage disease, high grade problem, uh, was not really something that was being treated for. Now, the interesting thing about, we have to say, what really is going on here, and that's that you have the bottom quarter and the top quarter, and basically you find out that the odds ratio of risk is also a number that relates to 4 or quarter. So, I don't know if the odds ratio being higher, being 4.4, with the people who are more likely to receive chemotherapy in the last month of their life really is a real number or just relates to the way this group was distributed. I will point out that if you look at people receiving chemotherapy in the last 2 weeks of their life, the odds ratio doubles to around 8. So the consequence of doing this, though, is that in the last 30 days of life, those who receive chemotherapy have a higher likelihood of being hospitalized and a lower likelihood of utilization of hospice. And that's a consequence, I guess, that falls out of this. And one has to wonder, is there also a bias in this study? Because there's the way the study was gated is that the candidates had to be examined in the last 6 months of life. So there could have been chemotherapy that was stopped earlier than that, and that would enlarge the low end of life prescribers even more numerically in this paper. So that's all I have to say about it, Frank. What do you think?
Yes, there are a number of problems with the study, obviously, because of the way it was carried out. One might argue that the prescribers who are in the top 25%, patients actually go to them because they feel that or their relatives feel that they're more likely to get appropriate treatment because the prescribers have a reputation. The other thing is that are these patients in clinical trials, in which case it may be that an endpoint of the clinical trial is death, and the protocol does not say stop treatment. It says treat until disease progression or death. Plenty of protocols will say that. So if the patient is in some sort of study, then they will presumably continue to receive treatment. One of the other problems is how does one recognize the last 30 days of a patient's life? It's all very well being able to do it retrospectively, saying, well, she died on April the 1st, and yet she was still being treated. But of course, the physician and the relatives, they may know that the patient is ill, and they may know the patient is terminal. But they don't know that the patient's going to die within 30 days. And so for a physician to say, well, I'm going to stop treatment now because I know you're going to be dead in 30 days is probably unethical. And I don't think it's even understandable or believable. I think the other problem is that the assumption of the cause of death is cancer. These patients died within 30 days of receiving their treatment of the cancer that they were being treated for. They could have had a pulmonary embolus, they could have had a DVT, they could have had some sort of myocardial problem. It is not necessarily that they were a lost cause from the point of view of the oncologist. They could have been perfectly well over the previous 30 days and died of something else, and that's not apparent in the paper. And to be honest, I don't think that those data would become available anyway. So I think what has engendered this study, is it the fact that certainly in the American system, these are very, very expensive drugs. They are being given to patients who, according to this paper, will be dead within a month, and yet they are still being charged, or someone is paying for this cancer treatment. If that's the basis for the study, then that's fine. They've shown something. But I think the data that they use that they've used to try to get that conclusion has a lot of flaws in it.
Especially as you point out, trying to move forward and utilize it as information that might increase the quality of life, but at the same time, you don't know where you are on the life map, that type of thing.
Yes, the quantity of life is quite important as well. Yes.
So the last thing I'll say about this has to do with what artificial intelligence has said about these papers. Gemini was not able to say anything, and that's fine. Even if if you don't know and you say you don't know, then we think highly of you. I will say that Copilot presented at first glance what was a wonderful synopsis, I guess is the way to put it. And they listed the objectives. And if you look at what I'm showing you now, they actually put the sample size number in accurately. number of participating oncologists, and the odds ratio were the same as in the paper and everything. The critical analysis was there. And so I was impressed up to the point that I noticed that they failed to note the increased hospitalizations and lower hospice usage that I mentioned. And then I realized everything that I was admiring in the analysis done by Copilot was in the abstract.
Yeah.
And so I'm not so sure that the paper was really reviewed. So long story made short, I think the language and the organization of Copilot's review was really attention getting. I was impressed, but I don't think it read the paper. And it would be the same as that medical student who didn't read the paper, but took something online as a utilization for doing journal club.
I think it would be interesting, wouldn't it, to give Copilot a paper without an abstract and say, can you produce an abstract? Can you tease out the data that would fill one paragraph for a readership that doesn't have the time to read the whole of the paper? And obviously, it may or may not be able to do it, but I think if it's the other way around and just looking at the abstract, I mean, anyone can do that. That's what an abstract's for. It's a sort of chairman's reading, isn't it? That you read the abstract thinking, well, that's quite interesting, I'll read more of that, or I know those data. And if all the artificial intelligence is doing is parroting what's already in the abstract, perhaps it should be the other way around. Give the paper, the raw paper, to AI and say, produce an abstract, and let's see whether you can do that.
Well, actually, I think we can. I'm glad you called that to my attention. I wasn't thinking of it. That's an original thought on your part. I think we can do it real easily. We just copy paste the whole paper without the abstract into the request to them, and make the engineer the request so that we say write an abstract for the following information, and see what they come up with. Now, it is possible that they're fast enough and smart enough to use the whole language that we provided to them to find what it fits in terms of a published abstract in the literature. But if we do it, we'll find out if that's the case. We'll see what happens.
Well, quite an interesting study, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, Frank, we finished up another one.
Yeah, that's good.
And
not in time for Christmas.
I have finished my shopping. Have you finished your shopping?
No, not at all. Monday is shopping day, hopefully.
Well,
I think
I
the other problem is,
that.
yeah, I mean, we've been married for such a long time, and our children are so old that really there's nothing. There's things we would quite want, but there's nothing we need, I think, and it gets harder and harder. I think I'll think of something. I'll let you know in the new year whether it was successful or not.
Okay, well, let's sign off now. We'll do this again in the new year.
Okay.
You have a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, and
Have a good Christmas, and see you in January.
all right.